but powered by the Apocalypse game.
Powered by the Apocalypse game. Powered by the Apocalypse game.
Hey everyone, welcome to Boards and Swords. This week we're starting off on location as I'm at our local store, High Tide Games. And to put it bluntly, there's a lot of stuff going on with D&D right now, so I need to pick up a game for our next Dirtbags recording on Sunday. So I'm gonna go get some. Now that we're back here in the studio, I can expand upon a little bit more because I'm still not comfortable vlogging out in public. It's still always so weird when you see people walk by like, yeah, I'm talking to a thing over there, so bear with me. Last week, Orion Black posted a essay, I guess. It was using the Twit Longer feature. I will have links to this down in the show notes. Hi. Future Chris cutting in here. You can tell this by the fact that I've actually gotten a haircut now and I've improved some of the lighting in the backyard, hopefully improving. When I recorded this bit earlier, I used the wrong pronouns for Orion and I thought it was only a little bit, but turns out it was a lot. And to most people that may not sound like a big deal, but because this is such an important kind of statement, and it feels like missing the point by doing something like that. So I wanted to reshoot this bit. It just didn't sound, it felt like it was detracting from the point I was trying to relay. Orion Black is a tabletop designer who has designed a couple of games of their own, but they're also a non-binary Black creator who was hired by Wizards of the Coast, I think it was like a year ago. And a lot of people in the community took this to be a good step, like they were moving forward with inclusion and diversity. But when you look at this essay that Orion wrote, it turns out that they had experienced a lot of really messed up stuff while working at Wizards. Criticism for putting forth suggestions for ideas on how to improve on diversity and inclusivity, some of their ideas being stolen and used by other people and other stuff, just a lot of stuff. The essay doesn't really get into a whole lot of specifics, and I have a feeling that a lot of that is due to contracts. Probably there are certain things that they can and can't say, or it may just be a situation where they just don't want to say because they don't want to have to relive that. So it really started a conversation talking about Wizards of the Coast. And I'll now cut back to the rest of this clip because the other bits that I said in here are still really important. And I feel like if I try and regurgitate this whole segment, I'm going to miss out. So we're going to cut back now to past Chris there. And in and amongst this, it kind of became apparent that Wizards is a big company owned by a bigger company, you know, like Hasbro. So, like what a lot of huge corporations do, sometimes they'll say one thing and they may not necessarily do it, or may not do it to what the people believe. Regardless of any of that, I just thought at this time, the better use of my energy is not promoting content such as D&D that people are already going to buy. Like, I'm not boycotting D&D. I'm not calling for people to boycott D&D. All I'm saying is that me adding the little bit of D&D creation into the mix, I'm just not comfortable with doing that at this point, especially when all these issues are being brought up. What I am comfortable with is taking that same energy, which to Wizards of the Coast is very little, like in the grand spectrum of everybody that's creating D&D content, I'm like, you know, this. Whereas I could take that same energy and apply it to an indie game, which we have done plenty of indie games in the past, but that person will appreciate, you know, the whoever it is that does that will appreciate it way more in perspective or in relation to the amount of energy it takes to put that kind of content out there than it is between like us and D&D. The other flip side of this is that we're scheduled to record next Sunday, and some of the other games that I would want to run, I'm still learning the system, so I needed something fast that's not us just playing Blades in the Dark again, because I could run that on the spot, but we've already got, that's coming out on the podcast this week, is something else that we've recorded back and I've just kind of held in the pocket just for this. But powered by the Apocalypse games, powered by the Apocalypse games are great in the sense that because they're more story-based, the rules mechanics are very similar between a lot of the games, at least in my experience. So I thought that picking up a new one like Masks, which is a game I've been wanting to run forever because I'm a big comic book person, so I've been wanting to pick this up and run it. So I thought this would be a good chance to quickly get down the rules and play this game on the podcast as well. So that'll be upcoming, and this also kind of works as the pickup of the week. So yeah, it's from Magpie Games. It's written by Brendan Conroy. So I'm still working my way through it, but yeah. So look forward to this on the podcast. I like the hardcover. Production so far looks really great. Look forward to this. Basically, if you're a fan of Teen Titans or Young Justice or that, where it's superheroes, but it's also more about the team and a bunch of teenagers, that's the kind of game that they're talking about here in Mass. So, another note that I wanted to put in last week's episode, but it was already getting a little longer than I'd wanted to, is I mentioned this book, and I mentioned picking up this and the Ultimate RPG Character Backstory Guide. And the other reason I picked this up is because of something I've been thinking about for a while, and I'm wondering, and I'm sharing this because I want to know if other people feel like this too, or if this is just a me thing, and that is, I feel like I really need to take my GMing game up a level. I've been GMing for a while. Right now, my favorite thing to do is to run pre-gen games and then deviate from them. So, like, okay, here's your overall storyline, and then we'll just insert all these like branching bits and funny side stories of things that happen along the way. I've made my own games. I've made my own like custom adventures. When I say games, I've made custom adventures. I've had them on the podcast to good and bad effect. And what I want to do is I'm going to raise that overall quality, because lately I've just not been feeling like, I don't know, I guess it's a form of imposter syndrome where I just don't feel up to snuff on, especially for someone that makes RPG content. I've just not been feeling up to snuff on my abilities. So This book, not necessarily, but this is in that same mindset is how I got around to getting this. But he's got another book. I mentioned it briefly that there's another book in this series along the same lines, and I'm probably going to pick up that soon too. There's the Monty Cook's Your Best Game Ever, which I have, and I have the PDF for at least, and I need to read that. There's a bunch of other books I've either backed on Kickstarter and read or haven't read. There was another one I backed that I read through that was actually really, really interesting. That was How to Write Adventure Modules That Don't Suck. That one spoke to me colossally, because that's one area that I feel that the two biggest things that I have problems with are A, naming things, because I'm terrible at naming things, and B, endings. I can set up a scene, I can follow through, but I usually am terrible at ending it. It usually almost is just like a cut, and then haha, we're done, because I just have problem telling a good ending. That's kind of like my biggest piece now. On the naming thing, I actually found a resource here. I'm going to link it up here, and it's actually called NPC Generator. I've had this up for the past couple of sessions. When you just need like a name on the top of your head, this site is great. You can just click generate, or even just random, like just shuffle the page, and it'll give you a name, a backstory, and some personality traits. You don't need to use all of it. You don't necessarily have to use, you could pick and choose, but just it's that on the spot, like, oh, you go talk to the shop owner. Oh, what's the shop owner's name? Bob. You know, when somebody's asking you a question, you just didn't have a name ready. I can just go, oh, hey, he's Arthur Commonbrug. Oh, cool. And Arthur, like when they're doing the dialogue, like, oh, how long you been here? You know, I've been working in town for a while. You can tell, and you say like, oh, you can tell he's around 50 years old. His hair's starting to gray. He's getting some wrinkles around the eyes. He's got brown eyes, long wavy hair, and then talking about like, oh, what's the hubbub? What have you heard? Like if he was a bartender or something. Be like, oh man, those cultists came through, and they start talking and be like, oh, what do you believe? And he says like, the gods are up there, we're down here, I don't really worship anything. It sounds like I made this up all off the top of my head, but no, there's like bullet points on this website that I've just taken and then just elaborated out a little bit. And that's very helpful for me, is just I can take an item and expand it and detail it, but I need that like initial kind of thought sometimes that's just more than just, oh, his name's Bob, he's a dude, he's been working here for some while, stuff happened, that kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and suggest that as a website. All it is just npcgenerator.com. Another neat idea I've had for a little segment here that I can just throw in the pot of ideas to hold on a basis is that of a kind of, hey, check this out sort of thing. Something that I've found that I've been digging and share with you. Now, that NPC Generator website's a good example of this, but I'm talking more on kind of the content creation sort of thing. But for this week, I'm going to throw it over to some fellow Punchboard Media creators, specifically the Boards Alive podcast. And if you look at episode 130 of their podcast, they had an interview with Eric Schlosson. Now, I went into this not really knowing much about Eric or his design work or everything, but I gotta say, it was a very entertaining interview, especially talking, not so much entertaining from like a ha-ha, he-he sort of funny thing, but just very interesting kind of getting into his brain and talking about how he designs games and how he's looking for an experience and not just another Euro game where you accumulate some form of victory points that's named something. And talking about how he's looking for games that you remember and you remember the experience of playing that game. And that speaks to me because that's something that I do a lot. I kind of mesh in a lot of that. But something that it triggered for me is that I actually have one of Eric's games right here to review, and that is Tattoo Stories. Now, last year when Bicycle announced that they were doing all these games, I looked at the list, and I'm a very judge a book by its cover kind of person. So when I read some of the press releases, I didn't think too far into it because they seemed like mostly party games or something that style of thing. And I haven't been playing party games as much in the past year. Earlier when we went on quarantine, Bicycle sent me, I talked with them and they sent me a bunch of card decks, because one of the things I do love is cardistry and doing stuff with, various things. I suck at it, but I like doing it. And one of the things they sent along was Tattoo Stories, along with some other of their lighter strategy games. Now, I'm such a backlog of games to review that the strategy games are going to end up going to other contributors and other co-hosts for them to check out. But I hung on to Tattoo Stories because what little I knew about it being a very creative and very innovative game, was like, and especially with like the theme, is like, well, I think I could probably get my daughter Chloe to play it. She's a very creative person. So she's 16. She's gone to like the tattoo parlors for like piercings and that sort of thing. So whenever she's there, she likes looking at all the different artists and that sort of thing. So I had held on to this because of that. But now, after hearing this interview and hearing a lot more about Eric talk about the mechanics and the depth behind this game, this actually may have gotten moved up in my review, in the review copy stand, because I really think it's the kind of game that's going to kind of click a lot more than I had originally expected it to. So while I would have gotten around to it eventually, I think I have even more interest in it now, thanks to that interview over at Boards Alive. In fact, let's do an unboxing. Here we go. And I'm going to grab the only thing I have sharp nearby, which is these snips. Luckily, this is a game that is not shrink wrapped. It's one of the games that has gone to the plastic seals, which I'll worry about getting off later. As we get into here, we got, let's see, very simple rule sheet. This is all there is to rules, so that's already a plus. And then we've got, very thick, well, not like thick, but like very sturdy. These aren't like little sheets or like flimsy plastic, like say, let's see, what would it be? Rainbow ink. These are very sturdy boards, and you've got 6 of those, and then the markers are your very standard kind of roll and write, included roll and write markers. You could definitely upgrade this if you ended up playing this game a lot. And then pretty much nothing insert, and then all the cards. So looks like a whole bunch of different cards with various words. I'm assuming that you end up drawing. Kind of curious, because it seems like a lot of this box is kind of just insert stuff. That's kind of interesting, especially when you see them combine that with they're doing the seals instead of the shrink. So it's kind of odd, but there you go. That is, let's see if I can get down in here into the shot. Yeah, so that's Tattoo Stories from Bicycle and Eric Schlosson. All right, everyone, and that is sort of the end of this week's vlog. I was having a feeling for a while, like, am I going to be able to talk every week about stuff? But I feel like every week I'm cutting stuff out of this. Like this week you didn't have as much cat transitions, but they'll come back, don't worry. And I keep having ideas that I'm cutting out, not because they're bad, but because I just don't want to make these things like hour-long diatribes. So one idea I did have, and I wanted to throw it out there, is I like looking at people's gaming spaces. So if you have a really cool setup for your gaming space, send me some pictures. Chris@boardsandswords.com. Send me as many pictures as you want. I want to show off some other people's gaming spaces, talk about what's cool. If you're like me, when you see these sort of things, you get inspiration for things that you can do in your own space, and I really want to highlight some of that. So make sure you send me an email, and I will try and feature when I get stuff here on the channel. Off a suggestion, I'm going to talk about the blog stuff at the end of the video. So today being Friday, you've got the vlog here. If you go back to Monday, as normal, we've got our Arkham recap up there for you. This is session 2 of the Circle Undone. On Tuesday, we have a clip that's actually from an old episodes of Boards and Swords, but it's a cutout of me talking about Cat Cafe. So if you don't want to sit through the entire episode and you're just curious of my thoughts on Cat Cafe, you've got just that video. Wednesday is when the actual Boards and Swords podcast came out. There was a little bit of delay getting that come out, but that actually, I sat down and it was just a one-on-one discussion between me and Bebo from Bebold Games, so it was an awesome interview. And then on Thursday, we had the latest episode of the Dirtbags of Holding. This time, I pulled out our Blades in the Dark campaign from way back in fall that I hadn't aired yet, specifically for this kind of moment when I had run out of stuff and we hadn't got around to a new recording bit. So I'm calling this one Two Blades in the Too Dark, since this is our second adventure into our campaign into Blades in the Dark. So make sure you check out boardsandswords.com if you want to see all this stuff, and I will be back next week with hopefully some more goodness. In the meantime, make sure you like and subscribe and share these videos, because that's how I want more people to be able to interact and talk in the comments about the things that you like, don't like. If you've got any suggestions on tabletop games that you'd like to see us try, comments are a great place for that, or you can send me an email again. And in the meantime, thanks for watching, and may all your hits be crits.